Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Thursday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Dave Percy, and I'll be hosting today's show. On our first graphic, the hazardous weather graphic, still a flood advisory for the Yentna and Squintna rivers here. That's for the western Susitna Valley area that remains out. And looking at the river level here, you can see it was definitely into the flooding zone here back on Monday to Tuesday, and then by today it's down still. It's still into the moderate flood category there, just barely above it, and that's been causing water levels to be as high as 2 to 3 feet over the bank, and that's resulted in flooding of outbuildings and cabins along those two rivers there. Still flooding possible in Squintna, but that flood warning is due to end later on today. And fire weather danger, or fire danger map here, not a lot of, really some areas of high fire danger, just kind of squeezing into the category there, here up over the Yukon Flats, around the Yukon and the lower Porcupine River. And then that kind of dissipates as it heads down in and around the Tanana area there. Little, if any, high fire danger back to the west or to the south now. Across the Panhandle, nothing. And moving on to satellite imagery, you can see some clouds dropping on down to the Arctic coast and over the North Slope. Really not a lot of precipitation, little if any precipitation associated with that. In fact, it seemed to be mostly mid and high level clouds. More precipitation associated with this batch of clouds that's slipping southeastward slowly over the eastern interior here. That brought some soaking rains during the day today with it here in areas, especially over toward the border, much more lighter and scattered back to the west. And yet another disturbance right through here, swinging, actually shearing apart. This portion of the cloud mass sliding off to the southeast, east-southeast here. Mid and high level clouds, Cook Inlet back into the Susitna Valley, and then you pick the rainfall up through this portion as it slowly lifts northward there and toward Norton Sound. There was some rain associated with that, with light showers to the south. A break right through here. Next system bringing wind and rain into the eastern Aleutians up to the Pribilof Islands. In some cases gusts high as 50 miles an hour. And then another break behind that, and then the outer cloud shield of the next system, well southwest of Shimia. Over the southeast coast, disturbance moving through there. You can see some clouds zipping on in, bringing showers over the area, but that's starting to end and move off to the east. Looks like even possibly, maybe, some clearing showing up along the coast. We're definitely seeing a decrease in shower conditions there during the afternoon today. Now continue into tonight. On the chart here, you can see the shower activity through the eastern interior areas there. And Northway picked up 0.13 of an inch of rain during the 12-hour period ending at 3 p.m. Thursday afternoon. So 0.13 of Northway. Same time period, Chicken picked up half an inch of precipitation, and Eagle had 0.7 of an inch of precipitation. Again, those 12-hour amounts, showers extending back up to the eastern Brooks Range. Otherwise, the upper Yukon Valley, not too bad. Temperatures rising into the lower 70s. With Beaver hit 72. That was a warm spot in the state today. Chukchitsik 71. Also Big Lake with some sunshine had 71 also. Not too bad in the central interior. Prince William Sound, North Gulf Coast looking really good with some sun breaking out. This weak disturbance here, again, just clouds. Some isolated light showers down to the south here, but that was mostly as that moved up, and amounts are generally less than 1/10 of an inch, some cases just a few hundredths. Some areas didn't get any at all. And this just mid and high level clouds across the Barren Islands there, so dry day for Kodiak Island. This system kicking the wind up over the Alaska Peninsula, as well as the eastern Aleutian areas, with gusts anywhere from increasing this afternoon up to 35 miles an hour, and gusts from the southeast to Cape Newinham. St. George Island, rain, gusts 35 miles an hour. West-southwesterlies 35 there at Unalaska. Strongest winds along the Alaska Peninsula. This is actually a good setup for the stronger winds to occur in places like Cold Bay, where they recorded a 56-mile-per-hour wind gust this afternoon in advance of the front, along with rain. Port Hayden, gusts 42 miles an hour, and then also those winds gradually increasing here off to the east. Port Hayden was up to about 35 miles an hour, 25 to 35. With the rain hasn't reached that area yet, but is spreading over the Alaska Peninsula at this time. And again, a break farther back to the west, showers ending toward Adak-Anatka. The Panhandle, showers here occurring today, starting to diminish along the coast this afternoon. And tonight, that'll continue all the way. Those will push off into Canada, dissipate. Just look for clouds, low clouds, fog along the outer coastline with clearing skies, actually. The trend toward clearing over the inland areas. Variably cloudy here over the eastern interior areas. Still a risk of a shower this evening, but more clearing as you head west. High pressure developing, especially a loft ahead of this system, but that will spread rain and wind in across the Bristol Bay zone. Definitely see the stronger winds kick in those areas, and that'll also push over toward Kodiak Island. So a chance of rain. Looks like southwest Kodiak Island, AKwx, for example, and probably staying south of Kodiak State Airport, just an increase in the clouds there. Gradual increase in the winds, but nothing really strong. Definitely not coming in tonight. Stronger winds, again, gusts 50 miles an hour across the Alaska Peninsula this evening. And probably along the windier areas of the southwest coast at all, could see gusts 40, maybe 50 miles an hour, with rainfall hanging right along the coastline there, back up to Nunivak Island, down to Cape Newinham, western Kuskokwim Bay. And definitely a wet, windy evening for the Pribilofs. Probably going to lose the wind after midnight, but it's going to stay wet. Occasional rain and fog, IFR there down into the Alaska Peninsula and eastern Aleutians. Improving behind here, again, really weak ridging. Should dry it out, maybe result in a little bit of clearing here for Adak-Anatka. Next system there back to the west really doesn't do much, kind of splits in two. One portion pushing off to the east here, and that'll bring a chance of rain back into Adak-Anatka tomorrow with just a trough, but winds not a factor at all with this system. And then the remainder of the moisture hanging back with that warm front out to the west. Weak high pressure up to the north of that. So really pretty slack wind gradient here over the central and western Bering Sea, and really not much of a gradient even over the southeast Bering. This system now weakened front, so the winds dying off. Showers, southwest winds 15 miles per hour, maybe gusts of 20 along the coast there for Bristol Bay. Showers diminishing for the Alaska Peninsula with partial clearing periods, especially in the afternoon. Same thing for Unalaska. Probably be a dry late morning through the afternoon period with increasing chances for sun there, as well as Nikolsky. South central Alaska, sunny to start with, and then clouds increase during the afternoon. Rain spreads into southern Cook Inlet in the latter part of the afternoon. Seldovia, Homer, definitely Iliamna, probably earlier on there, and a band of moisture pushes up into the southern Kuskokwim Valley. Back to the west, sunshine though, Tanana Valley, well into the 70s here north of the Alaskan Range, possibly even over the Copper River Basin, as well as a Matanuska-Susitna Valley could rise into the lower 70s tomorrow. And look for a mostly sunny day here for the southeast coast with light winds. Persistent areas, low clouds and fog along the outer coastline, especially offshore. The Arctic coast looks pretty good. Mostly sunny probably from the North Slope and much of the Arctic coast there after possible patchy areas of fog. And then the outlook for the first day of the weekend here Saturday, surge of moisture, a couple of surges of moisture right northeastward along this front, kind of energize the moisture field with it. So look for periods of moderate to possibly heavy rain along the North Gulf Coast. I'll be shifting eastward throughout the afternoon with increasing chances of rain over the northern Panhandle. Central southern areas, we'll see another dry, sunny day there with temperatures not too bad, 60s to maybe lower to mid 70s possibly, especially over towards Stewart and Eagle. Clouds increase for the central areas during the afternoon hours. Isolated thunderstorms possible here from the eastern Alaska Range. Not a lot of precipitation north of the Alaska Range with a frontal boundary here. Just convective in nature and showery. That'll extend back to the Brooks Range. All the way out to the western Arctic coast will be more of a fog, low cloud fog, drizzle, light rain sort of situation there. Patchy fog, eastern North Slope, eastern Arctic coast, partly sunny eastern North Slope. And trough here, bring an increase in the showers for the Alaska range, Kuskokwim Valley. Actually, a couple of surges of moisture will keep it showery and unsettled here all the way back up to the Seward Peninsula, but improving along the southwest coast with maybe some sunshine in the afternoon, weak system, low clouds, rain, fog, drizzle, IFR, flying type weather from the Pribilofs, extending down to Adak with that front. Better conditions over the Alaska Peninsula, and also better conditions a little bit back to the west, probably still seeing some IFR with fog and low clouds over the western Aleutians. Low temperatures for tonight, mid-40s to lower 50s from the northeast here all the way down to the southwest coast. Lows 45 to 50 Copper River Basin, upper 40s to lower 50s, maybe mid-50s south central Alaska, upper 30s Arctic coast to near 50 over the North Slope, and the Panhandle lows upper 40s to lower 50s. Highs will come into the upper 70s, southern southeast coast, near 70 to the north, otherwise in the 60s. Mid-70s here for the Susitna Valley area, 75 to 80 call it for the upper Yukon Flats, 70s all the way down the Alaska Range, 65 to 72 Susitna Valley and Copper River Basin, 50s cooler clouds, 50s mid to upper for the southwest coast, lower 50s in the Aleutians, and lows for Saturday morning, 50 to 55 here, northeast interior, about the same for the Tanana Valley, back to the west to Kotzebue Sound, upper 40s southwest part of the state, mid 40s out over the Bering Sea and the Aleutians with upper 40s to lower 50s for the Panhandle. That recovers back into the lower 70s for the afternoon highs, mid 70s over the eastern interior, cooler out to the west.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Flying weather for tomorrow morning looking pretty good here along the southeast coast, up along the North Gulf Coast as well. All the interior starting out VFR, and actually for the afternoon, let me back it up one. There we go, Friday morning, still pretty good over the Panhandle, a little bit of IFR there up over toward the border, otherwise VFR here all the way up to and off the Arctic coast with IFR here coming northward now, starting even early tomorrow morning along the eastern slopes of from the Aleutian Range on up to the southern western Alaska Range, and a lot of IFR there, Kodiak Island, Alaska Peninsula, covering much of the central eastern Bering Sea right up to the Kilbrook Mountains. And for the afternoon, again, marginal VFR just grazing the central eastern coastline up here. VFR in the interior, increasing marginal and IFR. Southern Kenai Peninsula creeping northward slowly along the Alaska Range, again on the eastern slopes. Marginal VFR spreading into all of Prince William Sound. Pretty good here for the Panhandle. A lot of IFR central Aleutians on out to the west, in northward to the Pribilofs to St. Matthew Island, but St. Lawrence Island and up through the Chukchi Sea, VFR. And for the following morning, Saturday morning, first day of the weekend here, VFR central northern interior, and again, lower conditions just grazing the central and eastern Arctic coast. VFR back to the Chukchi Sea. Widespread IFR here from the Pribilofs on west, and that includes the Aleutians right up to the Alaska Peninsula. But from roughly, say, Sandpoint, Nelson Lagoon, marginal VFR up across Bristol Bay, IFR over the mountainous terrain here of the southwest and along the western Alaska Range, IFR, Kenai Peninsula into the Gulf, marginal VFR into the north central Panhandle with IFR farther to the north. In the afternoon, that burns off to mostly VFR there for the southeast coast, marginal up along the North Gulf Coast, areas of IFR in over the mountains, VFR Copper River Basin northward, and again, same pattern there for the Arctic coast, North Slope, all VFR. VFR right on until you get to Nunivak Island, then IFR, Central Bering, and much of the Aleutians. VFR for both Adak and Anatuvik tomorrow, with Lake Clark and Merrill starting out VFR, gradually lowering, especially on the eastern entrance to marginal later in the afternoon. Rainy though, VFR seeing an increase in the clouds, but it'll stay VFR the entire day. Windy VFR. Both Lake Isabel and Mentasta, also VFR. Risk of a thunderstorm possibly there through the pass for the Mentasta Pass forecast. Tanita VFR. Portage VFR becoming marginal possibly before noon, definitely into the afternoon. And for Chilcoot and White, VFR. Freezing levels here, 8,000 feet across much of Alaska, actually all the way up there to the Arctic coast. So pretty uniform temperature with the weak ridging building in, about 6,000 there over the southern panhandle, and a cool pool out here over the west central Bering Sea of about 6,000 feet. Otherwise, you get out towards Chimianatun, it's back up to 12,000. And for the icing possibilities, could see some considerable moderate rime icing here. This whole batch spreading northeastward throughout the day up to the southern Kenai Peninsula there, southern Cook Inlet, back along the Aleutian Range. Kodiak Island, more of the isolated moderate after the heavier stuff moves through late tonight. And then breaking out, and then another batch here shifting northward toward the central Aleutians late in the day. And for the jet stream, here's that ridging coming through tomorrow, at least for one day before this thing breaks through. One branch of the jet stream cutting underneath here into the southern southeast coast, about 90 knots, about 120 knots over the eastern Aleutians. 9,000 foot winds, 20 to 30 knot winds here coming up and then diminishing to about, well, 20 to 30 along the southwest interior, lighter under the ridge axis. Westerlies 25 to as high as 55 knots for the eastern Aleutians. And for the 3,000 foot winds, light here in the east down across the panhandle under high pressure. 35 to 40 knot winds here out of the west at 3,000 feet from the central Aleutians, right up to the Alaska Peninsula, coming much lighter out towards Shimia. Easterlies maybe to 25 to 30 here from the Yukon Delta into the Bering Sea. And then those winds southeast become quite light here as you approach the eastern border there. And turbulence-wise, we've got widespread moderate chop. Again, that'll be advancing east and northeast throughout the day, coming up across much of the southwest interior there, and along and lee side of the Alaska Peninsula and the eastern and central Aleutian areas, otherwise pretty smooth for the southeast coast. And after the break, I'll return with a look at the marine forecasts.
Moon Conjunction Junction.
Hey there, stargazers. I'm Dehne Regis, astronomer for the Cincinnati Observatory.
And I'm James Albury, director of the Kika Silva Pla Planetarium in Gainesville, Florida. We're here to help you find your way around the sky.
Longtime stargazers out there may know that James gets very excited during conjunctions, and he automatically starts dancing.
Whenever the moon appears next to a planet or two or more planets come together, it's called a conjunction. And these are such exciting astronomical alignments that I can't help myself.
And with that information and the dreaded anticipation of the dance parties to come, I hesitate to even mention this, but
yes,
over the period of 2 short weeks, the moon will approach all 5 of the naked eye planets.
You mean?
Yes, the moon will pass near Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, Saturn, and finally,
Mars?
Yep, that's 5 conjunctions between, oh my, well, let's head to the sky. Oh, good, you're alive.
Of course. I'm not going to let a little spontaneous human combustion get in the way of seeing 5 conjunctions between July 14th and the 27th.
Excellent. Now, let's start on July 14th for conjunction number 1. This will be the toughest of the 5 since we're dealing with Mercury here. Mercury never strays far from the sun, and so you can only see it just, and I mean just, after sunset.
Look west as the sun dips below the horizon for the slimmest crescent moon you'll ever see. Just below it is a tiny dot. That dot is the planet Mercury.
Conjunction number 2 will occur on the very next night, July 15th. Just after sunset, the moon will approach the dazzling planet Venus.
Venus and the moon make a lovely pair in the twilight. But keep a close eye on them because as the night rolls on and the sun sets in the west, the moon will get even closer to Venus before they both go below the horizon.
Now we're facing southwest at 10:30 p.m. and you can't miss spotting Jupiter about halfway up in the sky. It is incredibly bright. Jupiter is by far the largest planet in our solar system and shines like a steady cream-colored star.
Let's advance our time day by day, night by night. On July 16th, 17th, and 18th, the moon starts appearing closer to Jupiter. On July 19th, it's closer still, and
I feel a conjunction coming on.
On July 20th, We've got a conjunction.
So cool. Now, I know the moon and Jupiter look like they're close together, but the moon is about 240,000 miles from Earth, while Jupiter is a whopping 465 million miles away. Okay, 2 more conjunctions to go. We're facing south at 11:30 p.m.
The fainter of the 2 planets in this part of the sky is on the right. It should look like a steady yellow-colored star. If it wasn't almost 850 million miles away, it would easily outshine any other planet.
This far-flung planet is Saturn, and it may not look like much to the naked eye, but it looks unbelievably awesome in a telescope.
Dehne is so excited to see Saturn that he almost dances.
Now, if we advance the date to July 24th, the moon cozies up next to Saturn.
So that leaves conjunction number 5.
Yes, and for that, we need to look at that bright reddish light in the southeast. It's brighter than Mercury, brighter than Saturn, brighter than even Jupiter right now. It is the planet Mars.
Mars is making its closest approach to Earth on July 27th, and that means all this month and next month it will look super bright in the sky.
I'm glad you mentioned July 27th, because on that night,
No way.
yes way, the full moon slides over and will be just above the red planet.
So not only will Mars be at its brightest, it will have the full moon nearby.
Yes, sir. So that's 5 conjunctions and 13 nights. The moon passes by Mercury on July 14,
Venus on July 15th,
Jupiter on July 20,
Saturn on July 24th,
and Mars on July 27. And you can see it all when you
keep looking up.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Today's sea ice analysis showing some melting up through this area here, Faroes off the eastern Beaufort Sea coast. And this area here, with the help of some southerly winds, actually retreating northward a little bit, and that's going to continue for the next several days. And for the southeast coastal water forecast here, out along the coast northwest, 15 to 20 tomorrow, seas 4 to 5 feet, lighter ones on the north coast. South 15, Lynn Canal Glacier Bay, seas 3 feet there, light northwest breeze for Stevens Passage, 15 knots out of the northwest for Clarence Strait. Outlook for Saturday, southwest on the south coast at about 15 knots, becomes southerly as you head north, and then they become southeast and increase here for the north coast, as high as 25 knots, small craft advisories. South 20 knots for Lynn Canal, light southeasterlies for Stevens Passage, Clarence Strait, northwest at 10. And for the North Gulf Coast, over toward Middleton Island, southeast 15, and that diminishes to 10 knots in Prince William Sound. But to the west, small craft advisories, easterly winds coming up to 25 knots for the western North Gulf Coast, 30 knots for the Barren Islands, and 35 knots for Kamishak Bay tomorrow with 10-foot seas to go with those gales. Northeast at 20 for southern Cook Inlet, northeast coming up to 15 north of the Forelands. And then for Saturday, you've got northeast turning north here across southern Cook Inlet, down 15 knots. Northwest 15 now for Kamishak Bay, west 20 for the Barren Islands, and southwest 15 for the western North Gulf Coast. East side here, small craft advisories with 30 knots from the south, and Prince William Sound, a significant wind increase there. East 30 seas 6 feet. And for the Kodiak Island zones, southeast, east-southeast 25, small craft advisories there. Turning south here, southwest of Sitkinak, and then from Castle Cape to Cape Sarachev, southwest 25, seas up to 11 feet. And also 11-foot seas here on the Bering Sea side with a good 30-knot southwest wind turning southeast at 30 for Bristol Bay. That falls off considerably on Saturday down to 10 knots from the west there for the bay. And west-southwest 15 to 20 for the Alaska Peninsula, seas down 6 to 9 feet, and southwest 20 up to Sitkinak there with 9-foot seas. Small craft advisories hold on the east side of Kodiak Island with those winds at southwest at 25 and seas at 10 feet. Aleutians, Fox Island, southwest 25 to maybe as high as 35 knots. The gale's a little bit back to the west here of Unalaska Island. We'll see 30-knot winds with 11-foot seas. 25 to 30 for the central Aleutians, falling back to 20 knots around Amchitka Island. And then from about Kiska on out, it'll be 15 to 10 knots with 7-foot seas. For Saturday, west winds 10 knots from Shimian at 2 all the way up to about Adak, and then maybe 15 knots here south of the islands. West 15 for the Fox Islands, with seas there 6 to 8 feet. And along the southwest coast, south of Nunivak Island, southeast 25 turn easterly at 25 north of the island. Southwest 25 here for the Pribilofs, and then northeast 25 for St. Matthew Island, northeast 20 for St. Lawrence Island. And lighter winds from varying directions here along the over eastern Bering Sea up to the coast, south 10 along the coast, northwest 10, so pretty light for St. Lawrence Island, northwest 15 for the Pribilofs. Eastern Beaufort Sea coast tomorrow, light southwest winds. That direction will help keep the fog offshore. And southwest 20 for the central coast, extends all the way back down, turns southerly there for the western capes, and then light southeasterlies for the Chukchi Sea. Outlook for Saturday, west at 10 here, but from Cape Thompson to Cape Beaufort, south 15, actually south 15, probably all the way up to Point Lay. Light winds there for the central coast, light easterlies for the eastern side. And for tonight, light winds, maybe some patchy fog developing along the Arctic coast. No change over the interior, diminishing shower activity, also diminishing clouds here in the west. Showers end for the Panhandle, continue that downward trend over later tonight with increasing clearing over the inland areas as front brings wind and rain across the Alaska Peninsula into Bristol Bay along the southwest coast. Chances of rain increase western Kodiak Island. And that front pushes rain up into southern Cook Inlet and the Kenai Peninsula tomorrow afternoon, back across southern Kuskokwim Valley to Nunivak Island. Lighter winds now this system. Fair, sunny and warm, 60s, 70s over the interior. Sunny all the way to the Arctic coast. 60s, 70s for the Panhandle. More rain over the central Aleutians. Outlook for the Saturday, time zone rain, possibly moderate to heavy along the North Gulf Coast.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.